Good morning, welcome to another online service for St Mary's Alveley, St Andrew's, Quatt, United parishes, both in Shropshire and both in the Diocese of Hereford. My name is Neil and I am the vicar of these parishes. If you've never been on our YouTube channel before, a very warm welcome, and if you are a regular, also a warm welcome. As always, before I do my sermon, there will be a contribution from someone from our congregation, and today it's the turn of my wife Vicky. So over to you, Vicky.
Today's reading is from John chapter 15, verses 1 to 8, the vine and the branches. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean, because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given to you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, I have been thinking about these verses quite a lot recently, largely because of this contribution, and also because I'm doing a junior church session on them as well. And whilst I appreciate Jesus's metaphor, I'm not sure that our under 10s will. So that's really got me thinking, what is at the heart of this message that I want to convey to that group of children? And I think it's all about strength. I don't mean the might is right kind of strength, but the inner strength that gets us through difficulties and drives us to be better for ourselves and for other people. My family is privileged to have a wonderful godly lady as part of our kind of extended or adopted family, if you like. As a young married woman, she and her husband were not able to have children. However, determined that they had a calling to help young lives, she and her husband fostered over 150 children, many of whom, now 50 years later, still go back to her and seek her advice and her guidance and her support. And then when her fostering days were over, they believed that God was calling them to help street children in India. And so they set up 2 orphanages there. And even years later, after her husband died in her late 70s, she would still go over to those orphanages and do whatever needed to be done and to help in whatever way she could. God has used her amazingly. This lady and her husband were branches attached to the vine. Whilst following the call God had placed on them and staying close to him, they were empowered to do amazing things. She and her husband were 2 people attached to the vine, like you are and like I am, part of God's kingdom. They are not unique in the sense that others have done as much and others have done more, because that potential to bear much fruit is a call to all of us to make a difference with his strength driving us forward. And in my own life, I know that with big and small problems, when I talk to God about them, when I ask him to help me in a stressful situation, or even when I dare to ask for the impossible, his strength amazes and empowers me. And that strength is for all of us. We're not in this adventure by ourselves. We have our fellow branches to encourage us But most importantly, we have the support, the life, and the power of the true vine. This poem is called Abiding on the Vine. If we are to remain abiding on the vine, our lives with Jesus must intertwine. If we are to abide in Jesus each day, we must be willing to trust and obey. If we are to stay connected to him, we must allow Jesus our branches to trim. If we are to produce for Jesus good fruit, we must daily give our egos a boot. If we are to remain, obey, produce and stay, then we must abide in his word every day.
Thank you. Some branches produce fruit and are pruned, cared for and nurtured. Some branches do not produce fruit and are removed, thrown away and burnt. We are a people of productivity. It is, for the most part, the standard by how we live and how most of us measure our success and how others measure our success. It's built into our lives everywhere. Productivity is the basis of our economic system. Those who produce are rewarded and get more. Those who do not produce are thrown out. Even within our educational system, the students who do well and produce are recognised and supported, while sometimes those who do not seem to get lost within the system. Professors, college lecturers know the mantra well: publish or perish. Careers and promotions are based on productivity. Productivity at some level is the core of the debates around poverty, welfare, healthcare, and even the elderly and the vulnerable. They do not produce, and our care of them or for them often reflects that, sadly. We've been convinced that productivity is the goal and only the fittest will ever survive. I wonder if that isn't how many of us even see our spiritual lives as well. How many of us have been told in some form or fashion to come to believe that pruned branches go to heaven and removed branches go to hell. Pruned branches produce, so they are rewarded, while non-productive branches are punished. I know with the training I've had that sometimes that was sort of inferred in some of the theological establishments where I trained to be a vicar. I think in that misunderstanding, fruit is God's demand upon our life, and some people see that as a way that our productivity is a way of appeasing God. If we're not careful, we'll get stuck categorizing ourselves and one another into fruit-bearing and non-fruit-bearing branches. There is, however, a deeper issue than the production of fruit. Productivity does not usually create deep, sort of binding and intimate relationships. It creates transactions. Jesus is not talking about or demanding productivity. He wants and offers connectivity, relationship, and intimacy. Fruit, or the lack thereof, is a manifestation of our interior life and health. It describes and reveals whether we are living connected or whether we're living disconnected. Fruit production is the natural consequence of staying connected. You can't see that in long-term friendships. You can see that in long-term friendships, long-term marriages, community and loyalty and love. We do not choose whether or not we produce fruit. We do, however, choose where we abide and how we stay connected. And I'm sure you know how that is. And I'm sure you've experienced what I'm going to say now. Sometimes we lose touch with a particular person. We no longer know where he or she lives. We've not upset, we're not had a fight and gone off. We've just slowly, realised that we no longer know where they are, what they do, or what's happening in their life. And then one day we run into them. It's a bit awkward. No one is sure what to say. There's not much actually to talk about. There was actually no deep, abiding presence. The connection has been lost, and it seems as if what has been thrown away. Other people, though, we run into after 5 or 10 years or even 20 years, it feels as if we've never been apart. We never left each other. There was and continues to remain a connection, a mutual abiding that time, distance, and the circumstances of busy lives cannot sever. I know a good friend of mine who I went to Bible college with, although we've been linked via social media. That's not exactly a really big link, is it? And thankfully, he took the opportunity during lockdown to reconnect with me, and we've spent some really good times on Zoom together. And it was just like, it was just yesterday when I'd seen him, when actually it's probably been about 10 years. Sometimes relationships just disappear and we don't have that thing anymore, and other times that connection stays no matter how long it's been since we've seen them. What fruit am I producing, I wonder, is the question I'm asking you now. How much? Is it an acceptable quality? Those are good questions if we understand and ask them diagnostically, as questions, but actually not about the quantity of our lives, but the quality of our lives. And that's what in this Bible reading today Jesus is actually after. It's the deeper question he's asking. It's the invitation to join the conversation, to jump into the game, to participate and to live fully alive. And that only happens when the life, the love, and the goodness and the holiness of Christ flows in us. We become an extension of and manifest his life, his love, and his holiness. It's a relationship of union. Even as a branch is united to the vine, we live our lives as one. This is not just about relationship with Jesus, however, it affects and is the basis of our relationships with one another. Love for Jesus, one another, and ourselves become one love. We soon discover we are living one life, and the fruit of that life and love is abundant, overflowing, and Father glorifying. I think this truly is what Jesus is talking about in our passage today. It's not about making yourselves more busy to prove a point. It's actually allowing yourself to be loved by God the Father, to have Christ living in your heart, and to be able to show that love to the world around you. I was mentored by, I have been mentored by several people that I really love and respect, and one of them was and still is a vicar and minister of a very, very successful church that has planted 2 other churches. And you'd think he was always busy, working all the time, almost, trying to prove himself to God. And that's how the fruit of his ministry has grown, because of his busyness. When actually, the first thing he does in the morning and the first thing he tells people that he mentors is not to be busy, to be able to just sit, to reflect, to pray, and to be thankful. And yet he would class himself not as busy, and yet his church, the church that God has asked him to lead, has grown faster than most other churches in this country. Productivity is not what Jesus is asking of us. It's relationship, intimacy, and love. Amen. So I hope you've enjoyed this talk and Vicky's contribution today. Notices for the coming week. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we have live prayers on Facebook, and so please join Vicky for those. Next Sunday at 10:30, we have a non-communion service at St Mary's, and there's no service next week at St Andrew's. So God bless, and stay safe. Keep going. We are getting into better days, and see you soon. Bye bye.